Welcome everyone to another edition of Play It Through, and on this edition it's Shadow of the Ninja, brought to us by Natsume. Shadow of the Ninja is one of the best ninja games outside the Ninja Gaiden trilogy that's available for the NES. With 2 playable characters, 2-player mode, and lots of different weapons to choose from, Shadow of the Ninja ends up being a very solid NES title. While the difficulty in Shadow of the Ninja is rather steep at times, it's not nearly as difficult to play as the Ninja Gaiden trilogy. One other thing of note is that Shadow of the Ninja is known by 3 separate titles: Shadow of the Ninja in North America, Cage in Japan, and Blue Shadow in PAL format. So here we go with Shadow of the Ninja for the NES. We start off with Natsume, our title screen, and after you wait a few seconds you'll get a little brief synopsis of the storyline, and that's pretty much the only story we'll actually get throughout most of the game. After our startup screen where you can select 1 or 2 players, you then get to pick who you want to play as. If you play 2-player, automatically the first player is Hayate and the second player is Kaide, but in this run I'll be playing as Kaide. Only real difference is the weapons that you start with are a little bit different for each character. While very comparable to Ninja Gaiden, there is a lot of differences in this game that makes it pretty unique. And that's mainly the thing of multiple different weapons you can choose from, including that you actually can pick up shurikens, which I just did, which you have a limited amount of. As you can see, next to my health part at the top is a number, and that's the amount of shurikens I have left. Once I run out, I go back to the weapon that I had previous to this. For most of the run, I'm just going to be using the default sword, but to show off at the beginning, I'm using some shurikens, and then I'm going to be showing off the Morningstar grappling hook, which I'm using now. It has a very long range, but it's a little bit slower than your normal sword, so I'm not really too fond of it, especially when you can upgrade your normal sword by getting a couple of the same weapon. Like if you have the sword and then pick up another sword, you end up upgrading your sword, giving it a longer range, which is very effective and will help you defeat a lot of enemies. When it comes to dealing with enemies in the game, only take out those that you must take out, that are going to be your biggest threats. If enemies jump behind you and they're not going to be able to get you, there's no point in obviously backtracking to try to take them out. As well as on certain enemies, the amount of hits that a couple are going to take, especially later on in the game, if you can time it right, you can just let them jump over you and then jump around you, and they won't actually be able to hit you, and it's best to try to avoid them altogether. Just like in some Ninja Gaiden games as well as Castlevania games, it's best to just run from certain enemies than try to stand and fight there and end up getting ganged up on by multiple enemies and taking a lot of unnecessary damage. Shadow of the Ninja is a relatively short game. There's only 5 levels in the game, and as you can see though already, that each level has a couple of different parts to it, as right now I'm actually in stage 1-3. Certain enemies, like the ones you just saw me fighting, the ones with the guns, you can't hit until they're actually firing at you, so you have to actually time your hits against them. But as you can see in this one, I'm able to just jump over them and avoid them, and then be able to get up to the next platform and continue on. This guy, however, is unavoidable, as you're not going to be able to jump over him, so just try to get in close and take him out fast before he does too much damage. 1-4 contains our first boss of the game. Our first boss is this one-eyed robot that shoots 2 sets of arcing shots. They're rather easy to actually get underneath of them or in between them to avoid them. And the biggest threat is actually him landing on you and in his homing pattern when he's coming down from the ceiling. The thing is though, since it's hard to get an actual hit on him when you're trying to avoid those shots, the best strategy is going to end up being getting close to him and then just keep hitting him as many times as possible with his eye open even when he's firing. You're going to get hit a couple of times, but you should be able to take him out way before he's able to take you out, which makes this battle relatively easy as long as you have a few hits of health left going into this battle. After we complete the stage, our health refills and we move on to level 2. Stage 2 starts off in the sewer, and it's a little bit more of close quarters, so avoiding certain enemies is going to be a little bit harder to do. As you can see, though, these ninjas that land out of the water, it's actually pretty easy to avoid the first couple ones that jump out and get past them before they're able to do any damage to you. Wait for these ninjas to actually go back into the water, and as you can see, they jumped over me the second time, and I was able to avoid them without actually having to fight them. So here's our sub-boss of level 2, and it's 2 of these giant robotic tentacles that come out of each of the holes, and every time you deliver a hit, it goes back in. Just keep knocking it back and forth, and try to avoid it as it comes out, because sometimes it'll come out farther than other times, and it may actually be able to hit you. But, just go back and forth, and this one shouldn't be too much trouble. When you get to here, avoid the smoke that's coming out of the different pipes that are broken, and just wait for the robot that's roaming on the ground to be far away from you so that when you jump up, you'll have plenty of time to duck down and destroy it before it actually ends up hitting you. These enemies with the boomerangs are rather annoying, but the thing is, you can actually take out the boomerang in mid-flight. This guy is easy to dodge since we're on a different level than him, but for example, this one coming up, either getting close to him, or you can actually get him, hit a couple times, back away, and when he shoots out that boomerang, you can actually hit it and knock it right to the ground, and it won't be able to do any damage to you. Since I picked up another sword upgrade, you can see that my weapon has a longer range now. It still does the same damage to enemies, but allows me to hit ones farther away. These robot enemies that are introduced right here, the ones that break away from their body and start flying around, are some of the most annoying and obnoxious to deal with. Sometimes in later parts it's going to be really hard to actually be able to do damage to them. So try to get away from them as fast as possible, and if you have the opportunity, take them out, or wait for them to give you the opportunity before trying to take them out. Just don't try to sit there and keep jumping at them, because you may accidentally end up taking a little bit too much damage from them. You may have noticed right after I killed that one enemy, he did drop a flask, which is actually your health upgrades for the game. Our second boss of the game is a giant tank. Get on top of it, and when you deliver hits to it, you'll see that it ends up shooting out a spread shot, which is pretty easy to dodge. The hardest part and the hardest thing to avoid about this battle is definitely the projectiles that are coming out from the back part of the tank. Once it comes out first time, it goes rather slow, but when it goes back, it ends up coming out a lot faster, and you're not going to be able to really do any damage to it the second time it comes out. However, the third time you should have a lot of health left still, and be able to deliver a lot of quick hits to it to destroy it before it's able to retract and get away the second time. Once you defeat it, you've completed level 2 and we can move on to level 3. The enemies from level 2 return as we have more of these breakaway robots that are really a huge pain. As you can see, it's rather hard to get up there and actually be able to do damage to them while they're in the air. Sometimes you may just have to wait a few extra seconds for them to come down to you, or if you're really lucky and time your hits, you can destroy both forms of them at about the same time. So as soon as you destroy the body, deliver a couple more quick hits and try to maintain that other part that broke off close to the ground and be able to hit it just a couple of times to destroy it, so you don't have to really worry about it flying around you. Just take your time moving along these platforms, and when you get to the boomerang guys, if you have a long distance weapon, stand away from them, because when they're going to throw out the boomerang, you should be able to deliver your hits on it, and knock that boomerang right back to the ground. When you get over here, wait for the guys to start shooting and do a quick jump at first in order to deliver a hit to them before they start shooting, and then as soon as the 2 bullets pass you by, that's your opportunity to deliver a couple more hits to it before it's able to retract the gun and go back into its defensive position. Just take your time so that you end up not taking too much damage from this area.